And so this lack of consistency in definition serves often to just confuse us as learners, because how can we aim for something that isn't clearly defined?
Bonjour.
Hello.
Hola.
C'est très sympa de vous revoir tout le monde. If you're new here, je m'appelle Alex and I'm welcoming back to the channel Solène, the lovely Solène, for the second time after our rip-roaring success, no idea how you say that in French, of our Christmas video. As you can see from the title, today we're talking all about fluency, what fluency is and why it's important to define fluency. Now I've got Solène back here today because elle parle trois langues, l'anglais, le français et l'espagnol.
Si, señor.
Si, señor. And so I thought there's no way she will have got to fluency in these languages without having a good idea about what that word means to her. And even if she hadn't thought of it until today when I asked her, she has come up with some very good points about fluency. Now, why in particular are we talking about fluency today? Well, it's because if I asked a lot of you French learners out there what it is you'd like to achieve in French, you'd probably say fluency, or I want to be fluent. And I would say to you, okay, what does fluency mean? As a French coach, I would say to you, what does fluency mean to you? And a lot of you would struggle to answer that. And well, I'll let Solène say, why do I think that they would find that hard to define? And why is it not their fault, really?
I think it's really subjective definition. And if I remember well, what we found on internet, on the dictionary, was at ears, like speaking at ears and speaking accurately.
I'll find my phone. So the very first dictionary definition that I found on Google of fluency is the ability to speak or write a foreign language easily and accurately. Now, we both agree that the words easily and accurately are very subjective. So there's clue number one, that you should be the one to define what fluency means for you. And then the other thing that I did was I looked on context. Reverso context, which some of you know already because I made a video on it, is my go-to choice for translator because it allows me to choose the most likely translation given lots of results of real-world language. And when I put in fluency in English, the translations it gave me in French were la maîtrise et l'aisance. Now those two are not synonymous. Those two are not exactly the same. La maîtrise is the mastery and l'aisance is the ease. So to speak with ease and to master something, they're different.
Yeah, it's true.
So therein lies the problem.
Yeah, and they didn't even say this on the dictionary, but we said in French, on parle couramment une langue. So being fluent is when on parle couramment. And couramment is like everyday language, courant.
Courant is like what the current language, but everyday language.
Everyday language. Yeah.
Couramment. So that's interesting. I hadn't thought about it like that before. But yeah. So in most situations. But again, it's up to you to take the meaning from that you'd like. So this lack of consistency in definition serves often to just confuse us as learners, because how can we aim for something that isn't clearly defined? And so this lack of definition can really stall or completely stop your progress and leave you feeling really bad and really low about your French, because you're constantly chasing something you don't know is there. I think about it like if you're trying to climb a mountain and you know it's up there somewhere, the peak is up there somewhere, but you don't know where. Well, you might continue for days, you might continue for hours, you might continue for days, you may even continue for weeks, but you'll give up because it's never in sight. And it's the same for French, same for any language. You need to define what that target. And so I've asked Solène, because she's got to what she would consider fluency in English and Spanish. I think that's fair to say. I asked her to write down a couple of things that define fluency for her. And so yeah, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you.
Je te donne la parole.
Merci. I think for me, fluency is like when you have enough vocabulary to have a conversation in any subject. Of course, if the people in front of you talk about a subject in science or in politics that you're not interested about, then at least you understand the context and you understand what he's talking about, but you're not able, of course, to talk about it because you don't know the words and the expression on this context. Doesn't matter. I mean, you don't have to know everything.
Right. Peu importe la langue.
Peu importe la langue.
If you don't understand the topic, how are you going to express it in English, let alone French?
Exactly. But at least you understand the context, and I think this is the most important.
And so that leads really nicely on to the second point that you make, which
is like, if you don't know one word, you can always replace it by another one. So there's a list of synonyms for words. Of course, there's nuances, but you can always replace one word by the other one.
Yeah.
So, for instance, pitch by field, or...
Yeah, so before, off camera, and actually we've already done this video once, but we messed it up, so we're doing it again. I came up with a silly example of what if you sent football players out onto the pitch, but there were no goals. What would they aim for, right? Just to illustrate how having a goal is important. But in that, we found something interesting in that because Solène isn't interested in football or sports, like team sports on grass, for example, like she doesn't know the term pitch, but she understood because of the rest of the context and she was able to gather what that meant. So when she's then talking back to me about it, she picked the word that she knew that was closest, which was field, right? And so that made me realize that there's the idea of comprehension fluency, if you like. So you can be fluent in understanding the language, but not necessarily speaking. But that ability to, when you are then talking about something, to use other words to keep the conversation going. I would go as far as saying it's the most important skill when speaking a foreign language.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah,
definitely.
And so, do you think you'll remember the word pitch now?
Yes, I do.
We've said it several times throughout these recordings, but yeah. Just to recap, for you, fluency means being able to talk about almost anything, but in special cases where you have no knowledge or interest of the vocabulary, it's going to be very hard. So again, it's hard to define fluency there. You know,
yes.
Because you're never going to know everything about everything.
Exactly. And even in your own language, you don't know anything about everything about anything.
Yeah.
In your own language, you're still learning. Through your life, even at 50 years old, you will still learn like new, science, political, cultural stuff that you don't know, and you put vocabulary on that stuff. So you always learn and grow and learn new languages, new vocabulary for your life.
Yeah. And just to go further on the point of how a lot of definitions that we find out there on the internet or in books for fluency are quite misleading, we found a list on this French website, ef.fr. We think it stands for École Française or something like that. It comes up with a list of perhaps 10 points. We'll put the link to the article down in the description, but let's just read out four or so of the things that they say defines fluency. And when I was first listening to you read them, I was thinking, yeah, this makes sense. I would say that's for me, that's fluency. But then they started to get really different from each other, and I'm thinking, again, it's better just to have your own definition. So
basically, this list is when to know that you're fluent. So the first point is vos interlocuteurs ne modifient plus leur façon de parler pour vous. So that means that, for instance, when Alex and I are talking together, Alex doesn't change his way of speaking. He would speak like I would be English. And the same when I'm speaking to him in French, I do it as it would be a French person in front of me.
Yeah.
So we don't modify.
But again, désolé de te couper. But again, it's really important that there's context is known here, because she could speak to me at natural speed for her in a lot of topics and I'll just get it. But if she's talking to me about something particular, like what the hell President Macron did today in a news conference, I'm not necessarily going to understand everything, so I will ask her to slow down. Est-ce que tu peux parler un peu plus doucement, s'il te plaît? Right. And so, oh, by the way, I love the word, I'm going to geek out here, I love the word interlocuteur. We do not have that in English, I don't believe, anyway. Wow. The person with whom you're speaking, and that's all summed up in one word. Who says French is always longer than English? Well, I do, because it generally is. Yes. What's the next point?
So the next point is, vous pouvez capter les conversations qui vous intéressent. So that means that if you are surrounded by people having their phone conversation, you will be able to catch this conversation or the other, depending on what interests you.
Well, yeah, you keep your ears open for things that interest you. I'm not sure that's necessarily a sign of fluency, but of course, in a second language, you have less language to draw on and to pick up. So. It's more, it's heightened, it's amplified, c'est amplifié, the words that you know, because they're fewer. Yeah. What's next?
Un monde d'humour s'ouvre à vous. That means that you are able to understand stand-up comedian on stage and to understand their humor. And both we agreed finally that it doesn't really apply always, because laughing at the jokes sometimes for stand-up are really complicated to understand, because they are like sometimes referred to cultural, and the humor for English person and the humor for French person are different. So we don't bluff to the same thing. So it's really difficult topic, I think, for me. Yeah. Yeah,
and the second point about humor is that often to get a punchline, it's often quite subtle. Some comics like to sell a punchline without making it obvious that it's a punchline. So there, and they call it la chute en français. But if they're saying that, and if you're a foreigner and you're only getting, let's say, 50% of the words, no way you're going to get it. So again, I think that's really high level and much, much more specific than some of the other points we're saying.
So one of the last points is like, aller à la banque, ou chez le médecin, ou le comptable, ne vous fait plus peur. And I think that's true. You are able to go to meetings, professional meetings, or like for doctor, explaining what you're here for without any problem, without being with someone else, with a French person.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's a sign of fluency, and certainly was something very very nice for me. A nice personal milestone for me when I started to be able to really understand most of what the doctor was saying here in France, but it doesn't happen overnight. Okay, so now we've talked about how the definition of fluency is really fluid, and that's one other definition is fluidité. But the definition of fluency is so fluid. We talked about why that's important to overcome and to redefine fluency for yourself. I want to talk to you about how I've seen the lack of clarity over goals manifest itself and have an impact on me as a French learner and other people, and perhaps you guys are somewhere in this list of steps that I've got here in this cycle. Because basically, whether you're talking about fluency as in your overall goal, your target, or a target that you've set on a next year or 6-month basis, if it's not clear enough, what this often does is when you're then like working towards your French, you'll start doubting whether you're making progress. And the reason is because it wasn't a clear enough target. And doubt leads to discomfort when you think about doing your French because you're not making progress. And then this discomfort is what leads to procrastination, in my experience. I sort of had to break this down over time and realize what it is that's causing me not to do this, because I feel motivated. I thought it was just motivation I needed, but actually no, it's clarity. So when you procrastinate, you then make little to no French progress, even if you live in France, because you can just go along with your current situation, either speaking a lot of English, or you just get by with the decent French that you have, but you're not making progress that matters to you. And then that makes you frustrated, and then that eventually leads to not wanting to work on French at all. And this isn't necessarily something very clear and easy to spot, but over time you notice that you're seeing yourself in these steps, even in a small way, and those snowball and accumulate, and you eventually have a negative relationship with the language. So, Solène, what do you think I would say is the solution? And I have already mentioned it.
I think it's to set goals.
It's to set goals, but it's to have clarity.
Also to have clarity and to not think like you're going to be perfect.
Yeah, I think she knew what I wanted to say there. But, she knew what I wanted her to say. Yeah, exactly, and it's all about the clarity. But yes. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, good. Yeah. Because I mean, it's my job as a I know it makes sense, but it's my job as a French coach to help French learners know when they're not on track and help them identify what they need to do in order to see the most progress and to avoid as many of these pitfalls as possible. Because it's really easy to fall into these traps. And so one of the main things is, the simplest things to do is just be clear about what fluency means to you and apply the same logic to any other goal that you set, whether it be with French, whether it be for anything else. I think it's a really good personal development activity and exercise to do.
Sure.
Because we both work for ourselves, and so we no longer have goals set for us by the company we work for. Or, for example, if you're sitting a French exam, like the DELF or the DALF, you have that as the goal. And in a way, all the stages you need to meet for that you need to achieve, they're your goals. That's really nice. But when you're studying for yourself, you don't have that.
Yeah, sometimes to get a bit of pressure make your work harder. But when you don't have this pressure and you just want to pressure yourself, it's more complicated because you don't have to get like a meeting to present your stuff or,
Yeah, so it's hard, but I think we could talk a lot about just the way of human beings, really, how we, do we want to be lazy or do we want to work hard? And but when you tie it into French, you see that it's all connected. So I really want to get some sort of term or catchphrase or hashtag trending, which is progress, not perfection. Progress, not perfection. So if you guys want to hit me up in the comments with that, right? If you've got this far into the video, thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Even if it is just to see lovely Solène, please do write down in the comments, progress, not perfection. Alex,
perfection.
Alex, I'm targeting progress, not perfection. Do you have anything else to add?
I think it's great. Like that.
Yeah.
Great coach, Alex.
That's a great endorsement there, yeah. So yes, guys, if you've watched this far, well done. I hope it was very useful for you. And also, I imagine that means you are interested in how to become a more confident French speaker. So if you don't have it already, go and get your free copy of my guide on 6 proven techniques to make yourself become a more confident francophone, that is French speaker in French. You'll find that down in the description below. And of course, if you're new around here, hit that subscribe button, abonne-toi, hit the like button as many times as possible. That's usually only once. If you hit it twice, you'll cancel the like. It'll also help YouTube see my videos and show them to more people, which I would love. But anyway, guys, merci beaucoup d'avoir regardé. Merci infiniment de nous avoir rejoints. Et à la prochaine.
À la prochaine.
Ciao.
Ciao.